This is the final part of the sketch with Liz that I'm doing at the Maharajah's well in Stoke Row. The first part I did there and then live, and this was with a fountain pen and then watercolour added. And then the next one is what I called a splash and dash, a sort of 10-minute job. You put some watercolour down and then go on top with your pen. And then the third one I did was a close-up of the well mechanism and the golden elephant. Sadly, it rained when I was doing this page and it's all splashed on there. Anyway, those were the three I did in situ, and they were all pretty quick because my son was helping me film this and his patience only lasts for so long, and I had promised him coffee and a cake. This probably, I'm going to say 20 minutes, this 10 minutes, and that was probably, I don't know, 20 minutes. This was done on location. This is the library at the University of Reading. I was there under my own steam. It was a warm day. I was comfortable. I had a bench to sit on. I had the time and the inclination. This piece is probably to a similar level of finish as the previous, but was done from a photograph, and that was on Instagram, and someone shared the photo and said, sketch it in your own style. Now, back in the warmth and hopeful comfort of my studio, I want to do another image of the Maharajah's well in a bit more detail, while still retaining the freshness and the spontaneity that you get when you're actually sitting outside. Looking at these sketches, what I like is the way that the yew trees are sort of cradling the well, and I quite like that feeling. And I quite like what I did here, which was slightly splay out, play with that perspective. Here it feels terribly solid. Here it just feels a little bit more organic. So I'm thinking I'm going to go for this. But I also want to try and make more of the colours, because this is very dull. And it was a very dull day, but I want to bring out more of the reds, because I've been looking online, and when this was first painted it was a lot more vibrant. I'm going to paint it on a landscape piece of paper only because it will be far easier. I'm just going to map the big shapes in. And the good thing about this pen is that it is totally water soluble, so these lines will disappear in future, which is good, because straight away, silly aren't I've made, the twiddle on top. When I talked about this a lot in those other films, the twiddle on top is rather gorgeous. We need that twiddle, and I've immediately cut it off. It is my nature, which is a good thing, to always fill a page. So I possibly would be far better off if I actually gave myself a border round my work, because that would stop me going to the edge of the page. It's just my nature. I'm going to make these bushes a little more exaggerated. And then we said we liked the way the yew trees framed it, so let's get those in, and we will once again maybe pull these yew trees so they really do frame it and they're closing in. I think that will work nicely. Even when I'm back in the studio, I still try not to use pencil as my underdrawing, because, say, just as I said outside, it makes you really indecisive if you think, oh, I can rub that out, I don't need to think about what I'm doing. Now, when we were painting outside, we were painting on a smaller scale to think about the size of the pen that we're using, but this is going to be more detailed. So it's always about balancing up those different requirements. So I'm going to start with a 0.4 and see how we get on. Now, just because I am in the comfort of my own studio and I've got all the time in the world, I do not want this to be stilted. I want this still to have that spontaneity that we get when we are outside. So if I feel myself getting stilted, and I mean, obviously here I am trying to film and talk and do all those things, so it's almost inevitable that I will feel a little stilted. I'm going to resort to my lovely practice of continuous line, because that loosens things up. Using this waterproof pen this time to start developing painting like this. Say all the confusion of those grey lines will disappear eventually. Just as I wasn't concerned with exactly the right number of segments while I was outside, I am not concerned here with exactly the right number of segments or ribs on the canopy or things like that. I'm still trying to capture the spirit of the place, and oh, this is a place with a lot of spirit. Got the tops of the columns. There. Got the tops of the column there. We've got the column base. Let's just indicate some of that. Done those steps rather too wide that side. But that's why I like to say challenge my drawing and just always do that little query, have I got this right or haven't I? Say in that case I just got it too wide. And then I liked how we did these bigger trees, and we've deliberately brought them in so they can do their framing. So we've learnt from what we did in situ, and we're taking the best of that, I hope, to help us here. Just because you're in the studio, oh, I've lost a paint. Where's that gone? It wasn't a crucial one. Just because you're in the studio doesn't mean that you have to use every single colour you've got to hand. That's the temptation. We still want to keep the spontaneity. So a way of doing that can be to use a large brush. So I wanted to bring more red in here. I liked the vibrant green, maybe some more red with that burnt sienna and the deep green behind. The paper I'm using is still a heavyweight cartridge paper. I haven't gone on to a watercolour paper because I'm doing line and wash. What I want to show you, say, is very much how you could paint if you're outside and had more time. This isn't a studio piece as such. Well, it obviously is because I'm sitting inside, but it's not sort of a pure watercolour sort of studio piece that you would be doing. Letting the colours mix on the surface as much as they can on this paper. I like that lighter green I put in. So let's grab some more of that while it's wet. Put some in, and let's grab some red. And we can use some of the techniques that we used in the splash and dash. So that is painting the shapes that we see and then coming back in and rediscovering out of our chaos with our pen work. So I'm sort of using some of those. I'm going to work in layers. Nice, bright yellow. This brush is an oval wash, and actually it contains a lot of water, but it also has quite a nice point, just in case you wondered what I was using. A bit of cadmium yellow. I think I used yellow ochre when I was actually at the well, and I think this might be a bit brighter and more sunny and fun. And we've got blue tops there. Now, do we want some blue in the sky? It's rather more green than blue. Rather like that blue. Let's bring some of that down there. Yellow is, for me, really sort of bright, and I'm enjoying that. So look what's going on. If something nice is happening, do more of it. I'm going to dot that yellow round. That is pretty. Okay, we need to let this dry. I wouldn't have dreamt of doing that much water and that much paint while I was outside, but luckily I have a hairdryer and I'm not afraid to use it. So I am going to start working in on top and starting to develop a little bit of detail and finding order out of this chaos, but without, I hope, becoming tight. And again, if I can feel that happening, I will start to use my continuous line and some repetition just to stop that tendency of sort of, oh, you know, this is proper, I'm now going to sort of tighten everything up. Well, we don't want that. We want an interpretation and a fun rendition of this glorious place. Now let's have a look what we can do with this elephant. It really is a very awkward sort of head-on view, and I wondered about making it bigger, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try and stay true to this, but just sort of get something going on there. Now, before I get too caught up in that, I need to get these railings in front, and I'm trying not to be beholden to the paint that I've put down. Because we're just trying to get that complexity of what's going on. And so I can't imagine anyone is going to come and count the number of railings in each section. If they do, well, that's their issue, not mine. And sort of see railings that continue behind there. I'm not going to try and finish off any particular area in detail, but just work around the piece. wonderful sort of circular lights at the top, but they're all sort of distorted. They're certainly not circular. Still struggling to get this in. Oh dear. I'm just marking in more of the yew trees. Certainly not going to do every single branch or leaf, even less on these further ones. This is where the writing is. And this, I think, actually needs a little bit of red putting in. A little bit of blue. So continuing the idea of layering and layering and layering, I want to use my brush pens to darken in between and underneath, and they are so useful because they are transparent. A really fast way of getting some darkness in, or tone I should say, not just dark. And this set, that's 6 grey shades, is super handy. A really quick way of putting in the darkness behind there. Also we can add a bit more shade and shadow should we wish, which I do. And it can tone down areas if things are too bright. And say you've got stripes like I have here, just with clean water, because these are so water soluble, we can just melt it away, blend it in, and it just becomes very watery rather than looking like I've used a pen to put stuff in. Like that. I would start lighter than you think you'll need to go. Because you can always go darker really easily, but getting lighter is a trickier thing. Just putting an indication of this block paving just brings the foreground forward. Grabbing slightly finer pens now, and we can start to put in some finer details. So this is a 0.2, and it's just quite fun to have some details in, because then our eye thinks, oh, she's done the lot, even though I really haven't. So I might put in the planks on these half barrels, and I can sort out the shape while I'm there as well. Might want to put in a little bit of texture. And again, you can use your brush pen. Just in places, vary which greys you use. So this is the writing that says the Maharajah, And how much we actually put in and how legible we make it, guess, is a matter of taste. It's in a very ornate font, so I don't mind if it's not actually legible. Might put some more blue through there. Let's see. Now I don't like what I've done with these trees in the background. They're too lumpy and clumpy. So let's just go back in, break up those lines. You've got marks in the paper from where you've applied the paint. You could emphasize some of those if you wanted to. Quite nice. Right, I'm just going to go back in, get some more yellow. That I like. And I'm just popping in a little bit of blue behind the writing. And I'm doing a little bit of cheat with some opaque white. And I'm grabbing a little bit of more concentrated red. Now I'm not sure of the wisdom of this, but I happen to have these little metallic colour sheets from Viviva, so I'm going to stick some gold on this. If I didn't have the gold, these little colour sheets, I probably wouldn't bother, but hey, I've got them. Why shouldn't I? Not sure how much it's going to show up. Oh no, it's there. It might just catch the light. So if you haven't come across these colour sheets, they are basically watercolours applied to board and just super, super portable. Really vibrant colours. And I really like them. Don't tend to use the metallics very much, so I have got them, and it'll be fun in this case. Just put a little touch of gold. You could of course use a gold pen or just stick with the yellow that you've got there. Yeah, that's entirely up to you. And I'm just going to bring a very little bit of that gold into these trees. Don't know why, just felt like it. I think Maharajah should have golden trees as well as a golden well, don't you? give or take, I think we should probably stop there. I really wanted to try and capture the dark through the well, which I didn't do certainly on this one, and did a little bit more on that one. And I'm not sure how successful that is. I much prefer having brought out the warmth of that red. I think that works. Not sure the gold was terribly necessary. Quite like the pattern that started to develop at the front, because that pulls it a bit more forwards. This sort of piece, if you were on location, might take you an hour or so. Of course, you've got the extra drying in there, so only do that on a warm day. Whether it captures more spirit of the place than these quick ones, I don't know. It's up to you, but it's lovely to have this in your arsenal and in your sort of bag of tricks.